Welcome to Bitcoin Escape Plan. The topic of today's video is what will Christmas bring for Bitcoin? As always, we're going to start off with the 4-hour chart just to give a little bit of value for anyone who is here on the video early. And then we'll jump to the higher time frames once I ramble a bit about the 4-hour. If you're new here, then check out bitcoinescapeplan.com. Over here, I've been releasing weekly newsletters. Make sure you're subscribed. Or you can just go to the archive if you're feeling spicy. You want to go just check out today's email. It is on the website. Go check it out. Subscribe. All right, back to the chart. So, Bitcoin on the 4-hour. So over the weekend, I've been watching the prediction markets, and we held this range really, really tightly. And it's pretty fascinating watching the hourly closes and how much it will stay to like an 88.5 or 88.25, just because that's literally what the prediction market allows you to bet on. Like the prediction market doesn't allow you to bet on 88.499. It allows you to bet on 88.5. So a lot of the volume in those kind of like early moments of a candle or the last moments of a candle are specifically decided, I think, by the prediction markets increasingly, as well as the option markets, the derivatives markets, OTC. There's just like too many different sources for people to make money separate from the actual chart itself. So what was happening on Sunday? On Sunday, we broke a new range and then lost it and went back to the 4-hour SMA, showed strength there for the first time since Friday and late Thursday. And then we did tap it again one more time before at the end of the day. This was after the close already, so this would have been in the London hours, going into Asia hours. We did see a rise past the highs of Sunday, which is a good sign. It's a good sign going into the week. It's kind of the best thing that we can ask for going in the week. And then I talked about this in the newsletter. 90K is the most recent Fibonacci pivot that we need to pay attention to. And you guys know already, I've talked about 90.4K a million times. That's an older Fibonacci pivot. That's super important. So in the short term, we just want to watch for 88.5K. That's the 4-hour SMA. If we see a major retracement down to that, that's something you would want to keep an eye on just to see if trend is going to pull back downwards. But in general, as you can kind of look at the shape of the chart, that's pretty good. That clearly looks like a bottom on Thursday, and we're not going to give it all back. And if we do, it would be somewhere in these ranges. All these blue ranges, by the way, that's just from the prediction markets. That's just for my rapacious gambling. I don't know if that's how you use rapacious, but whatever, not the point. So that's what I'd be looking for at the moment. It does look like we have failed the 90K pivot at the moment. We are outside of the Bollinger Bands as well, which is going to put downside pressure. So most likely, if you're watching this within the first 12 to 24 hours of the video, we're probably going to see a retracement down towards 88.5K. 88.5K was super important all day yesterday, so not that big a deal if we see a retrace there, but we do want to see strength off of that level, pushing us back towards 90K. Otherwise, we're going to need to expect it to go back to around here at 87.5. And that's pretty much it for the 4-hour time frame. So if we zoom out to the monthly time frame, this is really important. This is not something that you want to miss. We've talked about this in pretty much every single video. That is the monthly SMA. As you can see, it is climbing higher, which is a good sign. But our base case on this channel is still that we are going to continue to chop for the next couple months. I think we're going to chop all the way into February. And then most likely scenario is we're going to give that all away. We're just going to drop after that time. Not impossible that we see some strength here, and we try and get back to that 106.7K pivot that I talk about in the newsletter and on Threads. I talk about it all the time, 106.7. If we fail at 106.7, it's done. I don't know what to tell you, and we're not even close to getting there now. There's no reason for me to believe that we're going to get there in December based on the current look of that candle. It looks like December is going to be a nothing burger at the moment. We only have whatever, like 10 days left, 9 days left in December. So it's not possible. It's not impossible for us to see a candle like this, but that happened over the course of the whole month, and this is what's happened over the course of this month. Basically nothing. So our best case scenario is going to be a close above 89K. If we get a close above 89K, that's going to give us permission to push a little bit higher in January, but then it's just going to be the same thing unless we can eat up all of this candle, which means that we have to get above 109.5K, which I just don't see happening in the short term. Really the only thing that we can look to as a possibility that this would occur is I don't know the specifics of this, but the wash trade rule or whatever, how like if you were to sell a stock at the end of the year and you're in loss and then you rebuy it back, I guess the government doesn't like when you do that, but the government's totally cool when you do that with Bitcoin. If you were to take a loss here and then just rebuy it back the next day, now you've essentially wiped your cost basis and you have a taxable loss, a capital loss that you can put against your taxes, and then you just have to wait again for the Bitcoin to rise, which I don't know that I would be doing that this year, to be honest, because my base case is still that we're going to drop down here by middle to end of next year. That's still my base case. We've talked about it a bunch of times. That's still the most likely thing to occur. And I do expect the price is going to get more boring over time and not more exciting now. Like it's going to be stair-steppy like this, and then long periods of chop, and then rise, and then long periods of chop. So basically what I'm expecting is a long period of chop, giving away a bunch to, if we go take a look at IBIT real quick. IBIT obviously being the BlackRock ETF for the Bitcoins. So we don't really want to see it go down here, obviously. So I believe that the price of Bitcoin was, what is this? This is January of 2024. So that would have put the price of Bitcoin probably, what is it? It's right there, 42K. So about 42 to 50K is where IBIT began. So we have reason to believe that it's never going to get back that low again, or if it does, it'll be very brief. Because what that means is all of BlackRock's customers that put in money from 2024 and 2025, all of that money would be gone. All of those gains would be gone. And all that, BlackRock would have won because BlackRock would have got fees that whole entire time. But all of their customers, that would have been a terrible deal for them. Really, really bad deal for them. So I do think that it's likely that we actually stop out down here, which is closer to the 60 to 70K region. I think that that's more realistic. And I do think just kind of based on 2024, when we had that initial spike in March of 2024 before the halving and we had a new all-time high, I think that that was a really important signal for us to pay attention to. I think that it's very likely we're going to return to that price because, price is like a cat. It's going to be curious about, something that's like standing out. Like this level right here is a glass that's been left on the kitchen counter towards the counter edge. Like that's what it is. So the price is going to want to know. It's going to want to know. Do we need to touch this? Do we need to stay higher? Do we need to break lower? It's going to want confirmation of that. Whether it goes lower, I don't know. It really is going to depend on the timing of the stablecoins bills, which I'm going to talk about. I think that's what I'm going to talk about on Wednesday's video for the paid newsletter. So you guys will get a preview of that. But basically, whenever those stablecoins go live, trillions and trillions of dollars are going to be printed over the course of the next couple of years. So make no mistake, I know that I've been really bearish the last couple weeks, but make no mistake, the price is going to explode at some point. I just don't think it's between now and February. I don't really think it's next year, to be honest. I would expect it in the latter half of next year to start rising again, but it's going to be back to where it is right now. I think it's basically price is going to do essentially nothing next year other than probably drop and then recover. That's my base case scenario for next year. And then the following year is probably when it will really start to rocket, and that's when we would see a retest at these 100K levels. I think next year is going to be really boring. I know that nobody wants to hear that. I know that that's not something that is a popular opinion, but if we're just looking at it strictly from like a post ETF world, then what we really need to pay attention to is how it reacts to this full range, which that's about 52 to like 74. There's nothing preventing the price from going there. Again, prediction markets, over the counter markets, the amount of leverage that's used in Bitcoin versus everything else, like that's why a lot of these, you can't read that at all. Looking specifically to the right hand side of the chart, a lot of these gaps here, that was people getting liquidated. That was people getting liquidated. This, like, 117.6 used to be the most important price. I talked about that all the time. That used to be volume out to here, and then all of those people got liquidated, and that's why it's so thin now. These whole gaps here are just wicked thin from people just completely getting wrecked on what they thought was going to happen to the price, just not being the case of what happened to the price. So if I'm a market maker right now, what I want to do is continue to create panic and pain in these key regions, and that's going to make it easier to actually manipulate the price. 100K is obviously a very important psychological level. Like, that's going to be one that people, for whatever reason, they'll decide right now, while we're below 100K, that it's not a good time to buy, but while we were above 100K was a good time to buy. So it's not logical. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So I would imagine we're going to stay below it for a while, and then people are going to expect when we get back to it that we're going to rise. And that still is my base case. I know people don't like hearing this, but that's still my base case, is that's what we're going to see transpire over the next couple weeks, say until like January, February. Say December stays flat. It's really boring, but again, it stays above the SMA. If it stays above the SMA, and we close somewhere around here, 90 to 90.2K, that's going to give us permission for another run to 96. Now, if we fail another run to 96, we're just going to continue going lower. The weekly SMA is just going to continue going lower, And really, our best case scenario is going to be when the weekly SMA is so low that it's sitting on that anchored volume profile point of control. There's always the possibility that people who are holding at this level get stopped out as well. But I would assume most of the leverage is already gone. Most of the leverage was in here, and in here from those levels. So we're seeing a lot of people just kind of get wiped in general from their positions because they're being impatient, and they're not really holding Bitcoin for what you actually use it for. You're supposed to use it for peer-to-peer transactions with other people that you want to see continue to be in business and in good health for the rest of eternity. That's the point of Bitcoin. That's what you're using it for. It's not just tax loss harvesting. It's not just, derivatives and over-the-counter exchanges. That's the actual purpose is, I want to give you a Christmas gift and I'm going to give you Bitcoin. And in 4 years from now, that Bitcoin is going to hold its value. It's going to be more than when I gave it to you. That's the point, Like and subscribe if you want Bitcoin for Christmas. I'm not giving you any Bitcoin, but maybe somebody will give you Bitcoin for Christmas. So base case scenario, that's kind of what we're looking for. Is best case is December just chops. Maybe there's, a rally into the end of next week, but I really don't see it. And again, a best case scenario is going to be a strong reaction to 96. And it's hard for me to believe that that's going to happen in the final 9 days of December. I think it's more likely that we see a retest of that in either January or February. And again, if that is a weak retest, we're just going lower again. Nothing exciting happens until we're above 96K. I keep talking about this. Talk about it a million times. Over on the daily chart, same thing. As long as we're below that daily SMA, nothing good is going to happen. We've been dropping below that daily SMA since October. Literally, this entire time, we've been dropping below that. So there's nothing exciting that's going to happen for the price after such a dramatic expansion of it being below. All of these higher highs, all of that, we would be above it for a while and then interact with it and recover it quickly and then spike and then chop and then lose it and then recover it quickly. Like there were more interactions with it, whereas we have this long gap where we barely have any interactions with it at all, which is basically reset everything that's happened since May. Since the May rally, we've completely reset the markets, essentially. So there could be some argument that we're just priming for another rise now, but I don't think so. I think it's more likely that we're going to, if we can't hold strength here, this is at 75-ish. That was like the bottom in April. That's what market is currently curious about. It's not curious about 100K right now. It's curious about 75K right now. That's what it really wants to know. Do we need to retest 80 and drop to 75? Or do we have enough confidence that we can break 90.4, get back to 94 to 96, and continue higher? And at the moment, I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that on the chart. I know people don't want to hear that. I know they're not excited about it. But that is reality, is that we are more likely to retest 75 than we are to retest 100 at the moment. So, what does that mean for you? At this stage of the cycle, this is not investing advice, but at this stage of the cycle, what I personally am focused on is reducing debt and increasing my income so that I can be ready to buy more Bitcoin at these levels. This isn't something I talk about that often. In general, I just tell people to DCA, but like I barely bought any Bitcoin all of last year. Like I probably bought some in April. And other than that, I don't think I really bought very much because my cost basis is over here. This is most of my cost basis is sub 30 to 50K. So for me, there's an argument to continue to increase my stack, but I have credit card debt. So when you have high interest debt, that's what you actually want to focus on more than, trying to get an asset that is likely going to continue chopping and dropping. We hold Bitcoin because of our belief that it's going to be up here, that it's going to be 1 million one day. It's a long way to 1 million still. And even though the chart looks pretty good, I mean, there it looks like a tiny little line. Look at how much room we need to run to 1 million still. I do think that it's possible, but I think people underestimate how long that might take. It's just not going to be something that happens overnight. I talk about this in the book that I know I'm taking forever to release. It's done already. I haven't changed anything. I think that 100K was the most important level now. 250 is going to be the most important next. And especially since we're not getting a sincere run for 250 this time around, my baseline expectation is we're going to chop and drop now. We're going to fight to reclaim 100. Once we have reclaimed 100, and again, this might be on the tail end of 2026 or early 2027 that this actually occurs, we're going to reclaim the old all-time highs probably quicker than we did in the past, the same way that in March of 2024, that had never happened before. We had never seen, a new all-time high in the halving year. And that I think that kind of fucked us up for this whole year. I think that's part of why, we saw a less parabolic top is because we already had a new high before the cycle even traditionally started in our understanding of it. So what I would expect is we're going to chop and drop and get to at least these levels, possibly lower, but it's very likely that it could just be, 51 to 74 is where we actually bottom out before starting to rise. But I wouldn't expect a return to 126 until 2027. And then it's quite possible it just rockets right past that, and then we can actually get to 150, 180, etc. That would be towards the tail end of 2027. So I'm going to wrap up this video. This has been a long ramble. Make sure that you go check out the newsletter, again, at bitcoinescapeplan.com. That'll give you all of these levels in a more succinct manner than I've been able to do here. I'll put that in the link to the description as well. Like and subscribe. Thank you so much for being here. Merry Christmas. I'll probably still make another video on Wednesday. I don't know. Let me look at the calendar to see what day that is. Is that Christmas? Wednesday is Christmas Eve. I'll probably still make a video. I'll still do the weekly paid newsletter preview then. So I'll see you then. Thank you so much for watching.